And welcome back to Survivor Hot Takes. It is me, Coach Drew, joined today, as always, by Emily. Emily, how are you doing?
I'm thriving. How are you today?
I'm doing all right. And for the first time since Ben, Chris Underwood, Fabio episode, we have Chris from the Nullified Take. Chris, how have you been? And what's your hot take on the season so far?
Yeah, well, I've been good, thanks. It's been a while since I've been on Reality Pop, but it kind of feels like I'm coming home to where it all started as well in this specific recap. What would be the hot take for the season? I don't hate Jonathan as much as everybody else seems to be hating on him online at the moment, and I know people are probably going to come for me. I just haven't seen enough. Like, I understand he's been in arguments with people out there, and it doesn't look good that the arguments that we've seen out there has been with women. So, for instance, Drea, obviously Marianne, and then Lindsay. And I can understand how a lot of people see things in Jonathan that they probably can relate to in real life, and then they're projecting a lot of that hatred towards Jonathan out there. I can understand that. I just think that Survivor is a difficult game. They take food away from you. You're sleeping in the rain. You're being deprived. The guy eats, 4,000 calories a day. He's not getting his food.
18 eggs, as a matter of fact. Did you know that? Do you know how many calories it takes for you?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, he's hangry, and I can relate to that because I'm someone who gets hangry. As someone that gets hangry myself and can get a bit moody, and it's probably why I wouldn't do well out on Survivor. I can kind of relate to that a little bit. So I just don't hate him as much as everybody else at this point. I think that's a bit of a hot take.
Has he been someone that you've been rooting for from the start?
The thing is, when you do a podcast such as what I do and you guys do, I feel like it's better to stay as neutral as you can and to look objectively at everybody. Obviously, there's certain people you're gonna do that. Yeah, obviously there's gonna be certain people you're gonna like. There's gonna be certain people you're not gonna like. I've also criticized a lot of the hoorah around Jonathan in the sense that people have been talking about him like he's this challenge beast when he's not even in the top 10 challenge beasts of all time. I mean, the guy has only won 2 immunities. He's done great prior to the merge and a lot of the team challenge portions of the game. But as an individual, he's not even featuring in the top, But I think that I just wanted to balance it out. There's so much hatred towards this guy online and love as well. I'll be fair. It's 50-50. It's very polarizing. I just feel like, I don't know what's going on, why people are losing their minds about this guy at this stage. So that's kind of my hot take. I don't think he's my favorite. My favorite this season was Drea, without a doubt. I really enjoyed Drea. So I want to see her come back. So
how did you feel when she was gone? Did you see the writing on the wall, or did you kind of think that she might actually make it?
No, I was hoping she was going to make it. So in the beginning of the season, and even still now, I love this cast. I think it's I enjoyed last season's cast. This cast is just so much better than last season's cast.
Absolutely.
That they're making a season that I think is sort of got game mechanics in it that we didn't enjoy last season. They're making it bearable. The 26 days, the hourglass twist, the do or die, all these things that we as fans don't really like. We're still enjoying this season because of the cast that we have this season. So I was hoping Drea was going to be, because Kageon's my favorite season of all time. Tony Vlachos is my favorite winner of all time. So obviously Winners at War was a great time for me watching that. But I was hoping she could be the female Tony Vlachos of the new era and a great cast who plays a very explosive game, makes it to the end when we all know that she shouldn't get there because she is playing too much of an explosive game. She's in the front line. People knew about all of her advantages. She didn't keep it a secret. She was making a lot of mistakes out there, but give me 20 Dreas every season rather than 20 Romeos at this stage. That's kind of where I'm sitting.
It's super interesting too, because now that at first you kind of compared her to Tony, and I was how similar are they really? But then I'm kind of thinking about that really goofy side that we saw of her while they were snuffing her torch, and how similar is that to just how Tony's gameplay, especially in, was it Second Chances?
No, Game Changers.
It wasn't. What was it?
Game Changers.
Game Changers. Yeah, and even just kind of thinking about how they kind of parallel back and forth. That's so interesting. And
also
their advantages. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was also going to add, you bring up a great point with Drea when she left the game, and she I feel like she let us in on who she actually is as a person, where I feel like the whole season she was guarded and we didn't see much emotion from her. She was very monotone sometimes, but you knew that she was going to be a cutthroat player. She was going to take emotions out of what she was doing out there. And I still found her entertaining, but I could visibly see her shoulders drop when she was voted out. And it was almost like she was relieved that she didn't have to play this game of backstabbing. And I felt like that goofy side of her came out and we didn't see that in the game. And that was the true Drea. And by the way, I know this is not the episode, but I've got so much respect for Drea. And this probably solidified why she was my favorite player this season, because she really took the loss in stride. She went up to everybody, congratulated them, understood it was a game, and moved on. And I think that too many people, like Tyson said in Winners at War, take this game too seriously, and it destroys them outside of it. And even fans, sometimes it becomes tribal. Like you're either team against Jonathan or you're a team with Jonathan. And I'm like, can we as fans just enjoy it? Like, I mean,
until they do something actually problematic, why are we? Yeah, I get it. And I do feel like the fandom, and I mean, I'm guilty of it when it comes to certain people. No one really on this. No, that's a lie. There was one person on the season that I've just every week I'm saying no. But
was it Tori?
Tori, yes, Tori.
I know you too well, Drew.
But
she did grow on me though, a little bit. She did.
I enjoyed her. I enjoyed Tori. You see, because the thing for me is that you need these characters that make you feel a certain way on the show. Like it gives us something to talk about. If you're going to go to the office on Monday or by the water cooler and you're watching the show Survivor and there's friends of yours that watch it as well, you talk about the fact that you're frustrated about this girl, Tori, who's just being an asshole to Roxroy out there and doing all these different things. But at least it gives you something to talk about and you're feeling a certain type of way. I would still enjoy having more Tories than Romeo. And I know I'm going hard on Romeo at the moment. I know that he's had a tough out there as well.
Yeah, I like
Romeo.
He's a nice guy. I think he's a nice guy. It's just he's wallpaper at this point. Yeah. Like when it comes to as entertainment.
Right, and is that what the edit's making you think? Because I also I wonder if his story and his journey is just not something that like they are choosing to feature in order to put more light, shine more light on the actual winner. You know what I mean?
I mean, I've said this a few times, but like pre-merge, we were getting a lot of Romeo, or I felt like we were getting a lot of Romeo.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like a lot of people deemed him as one of the leaders on his OG tribe just based off of what we were seeing, and to see the fall from grace since the merge has happened. I mean, I still like whenever he does get confessionals, they're usually pretty like it's just him just being
so funny,
annoyed with everyone, and I love that aspect. But I do wonder, why they kind of nerfed him after the merge happened, because I felt like he was a front runner.
Do you not think like do you not feel like he went back into the shell where pre-merge he felt more in control? Maybe he felt like he was in a better position in the game to drive a little bit more of the strategy, where after the merge he tried to make a move and then High and the others sort of put him back in his place after that, and then he realized he didn't have powers, so he changed this game up to become a little bit more insulated, opposed
take
to
the back seat, let these. Yeah. And we got a confessional of that 2 weeks ago where he says, "Take a back seat, let these big names go after each other." And you know what? I've sat here many times and said, if you win with the strategy, then no one can talk down on it because you won and they didn't. So if it turns out that he does win, I don't think that anyone thinks that he's going to win. But if he does, I can't say anything bad about it because he straight up told us on TV, this is what I'm doing. And if it works out for him, then we can all kick rocks. Yeah, we can all kick rocks. No pun intended. So going to last week's episode, we really start from the fallout of the Drea blindside-ish. But on her way out, and like I said last week, Drea blew up everyone's games passive-aggressively, which I loved. But Omer, I feel like, was on the top of her hit list because he was the only one that she outright just said, hey, you know what? I trusted you with this. You're the only one that knew. Everything else was kind of like an actual compliment. Jonathan was like, oh, yeah, I never was coming after you. You came after me. So she blows up Omer's spot on the way out. And then immediately we have a Mike confessional where Mike's talking about how he doesn't want to. He doesn't trust Omar anymore. Blah blah blah, and he feels like he can do this, but I want to get rid of him now. And once again, it's Mike turning on allies, which I don't hate that he's doing this, only because like most of these allies planned on turning on him at some point or another.
Yeah.
I think that, like I said last week, I feel like he's Coach 2.0, better coach. Because I like Mike, where he has all these loyalties to people and he continues to screw them over and play the I'm the loyal guy card.
That my word is my bond. If I hear that one more time,
and it's like it's not.
He would take a bullet for
Yeah.
Lydia, apparently. You know,
Yeah.
that's what he said.
And it's like, no.
He stepped right out of the way of that bullet. Right. Is all I'm gonna say.
And I also thought like the poetic genius of him. He takes the idol from Omar, which Andrew, you were right. I thought that Omar was gonna give a little bit more resistance and to giving him back and kind of framing it more of like I saved your life in the game and now you have to guarantee mine, which I feel like made the most sense because almost everyone has some sort of advantage except for him. Which anyway, but I thought it was so poetic because Mike took it from him and was like, this is now like our idol, my friend, like you and me, right? And then 2 seconds later, they pan to his confessional and he's like, I don't trust him with my life. Like it lost my mind. I thought it was so funny.
I need to add to this because I get where you're coming from, Coach. You're asking, did Drea have an influence on the vote? Now, when I went to do my recap after the episode, I didn't watch any of the exit press. I didn't know anything that Omar said afterwards, but apparently there was a lot that we didn't see that happened here that the edit didn't show us. Omar had a nullifier that he apparently got day 8 in the game. And he had the idol from Mike. And I said on my podcast that if you're going to take the idol, you need to blindside him right there, not keep the idol for yourself after you go back to camp, because you can't do that. Because that's just rubbing salt in injury that you've taken this guy's idol and now you're letting him sit there for 2 days, seeing the train come and that it's going to hit him. So you got to take him out, make it a clean blindside. That way you can claim it as a great move. So he had to give it back. And the reason that Omar gave in his exit press for giving the idol back was because he wanted to be fancy with his nullifier and he wanted to play it to nullify Mike's idol when he played it in that next round so it would look impressive in front of the jury. So what we didn't see as an audience is that in that time, he told Jonathan about the nullifier, and apparently I think they found it together and how he was going to use it. Jonathan was already upset, as we can see in this episode, because Omar has just done this massive move. They got Drea out, so now he's looking like he's more of a likely winner. He's got a resume going into the finale. He didn't want to see, at this point, I believe, Omar do a second impressive move in a row. So he went to Mike to tell him about the fact that there was going to be a move and a blindside coming his way. So I don't give Mike credit for seeing Omar coming. I think there's things that happen behind the scenes, and also don't think Drea leaving, putting a target on Omar really changed the narrative. I think it was Jonathan blowing up Omar's spot in this game, and we just didn't see it on the edit. And that's why I've sort of said, I think there's certain things that we're not being shown, which I'm really saddened about it, because I don't know how you guys feel about it. I'd much rather see more of the full picture and who is actually doing what out there so I can judge these players accordingly, opposed to thinking that one player is better than what they are. Like, for instance, was Omar really this great player this season? Or did they build him up so that Marianne could look more impressive on her way to the win?
Well, I do feel like that's like a really subjective thing. So even like if like we, all three of us, we each have our own truths, right? And like how I see you and how you see me may be different than how I see me or how Andrew sees me, right? So I think that I think that they're trying to paint the picture in a way where we understand the fullest picture to how the winner gets to where the winner is going to be on Wednesday. I wish that they had a little bit longer than just an hour every single week. Cause I feel like, again, like you said, like there's just so much that goes on because it's a 24-hour game, 26 days, Andrew, what do you think?
And this is why I try to avoid I tried to avoid reading, post-game press until after the season's over. But I also try to avoid edit reading. In fact, this is probably the first time, 41 was the first time that I actually sat there and like, okay, based off of the edit, how are things going? Before that, it was just, I just took whatever was shown to me in 43 minutes. This is what's happening. Whether for better or worse, this is what's happening. Now, I'm not dumb. Like I understand that other things happen, and I always keep that in the back of my mind. Like, oh, I wonder what really. But when it comes to actually watching, this is what's happening in front of me. So going off what Chris said, was Omer the strategic powerhouse that he's been portrayed as? I hope so. And this is how, and I would that's kind of how he's going to live in my head until something else happens, or like I can go back and read all of this post game press, or like he plays again and he gets caught with his pants down early. But in my head, currently Omer is the best strategic player the season had. And
just gonna throw another thing out there, based on the edit alone, and like if we ignore what he said afterwards, which I think blew a few holes in his game potentially, right? And I don't think he did himself any favors. Maybe he was a little bit too honest with Rob when he did that exit interview. But I love Omar regardless, and I've really enjoyed him this season. I still think, on my podcast, he was like 3-4 times more points. We gave points weekly for best players. It was not even close. The guy was the best player by a country mile according to how we read the edit this season.
Exactly.
The one thing I do want to say about Omar, another thing that sort of we have seen in the edit, is that in this episode, I know I might be jumping a little bit ahead, but it's kind of relevant to Omar. I don't know what structure you guys want to use here, but
no, we're just talking.
Just go for it. Okay. Well, in this episode, you've got Omar and Lindsay going into tribal council. Lindsay is going to be immune. She can only play the idol this specific round at final 6, right? And Omar is going to be vulnerable going into this. And, he's a big fan of the show. It's an amulet. It's not an idol. It can only be played until final 6. You put 2 and 2 together, there's no way this thing's being put back in the game. I just don't think there was any way that was going to get put back in the game. I do mark Omar down as well for not saying to Lindsay, we absolutely have to play this for me this round. Let's secure my safety. Then 2 of us will be in the top 5. That's 40%, of the votes sitting with us. We need to secure that. That is more important than anything else. So I actually do still criticize him. And that's another thing that when you look at his game, he did a lot of good things. And obviously you only have to do 1 or 2 things wrong. You're food deprived. There's a lot of things happening. But you have to be critical of the fact that he did not force her hand there, in my opinion. If he's a great player.
And he did say in a lot of his confessionals or his exit interviews is that he just didn't want to be the type of person that pressured anyone to be able to for anyone to do anything. And he thought that that if he pressured Lindsay, then that would be something that would be perceived much more negatively and would actually more detrimentally affect his game. But I feel like whenever you get to that final 6 point, you have to apply pressure because everyone wants it just as bad and everyone can see it just as close,
Well, think about it, Tony. We spoke about Tony earlier. How much pressure did Tony put on Wu to take him to the final 2 when he said, hey, your whole game is built on being this honorable guy. You're now going to vote me out. How's the jury going to perceive? He was putting an immense amount of pressure on someone like that. And I think even in his own season with Sarah Lucina, how they work together, this is one of the best to ever play the game. Did you see how much pressure he put on Sarah to do certain votes? It didn't all work his way every time because Sarah's very strong-willed as well, similar to a Lindsay character, who I see very much similarities between those 2 players. But my point is that you've got to play more. You cannot switch off at the end game. At the end game, it's at its most dangerous. It's the most vital where you could potentially go home. And I feel like he just relaxed at the wrong time.
Right. Right.
And so, my thing with Lindsay this episode isn't like this. I think I may have once again jumped off of a bandwagon. I did jump off the Lindsay bandwagon after this.
How dare you? Get out of here!
I had to because of things that'll happen later, but I also have to do it because I do think that. What do I know? For all I know, she wins. But from where I was sitting then, it did seem like, hey, y'all should know, or at least you should know, or at least suspect that this is just an amulet, and it's probably not getting put back in. And even if it does, your chances of potentially finding it, I would say, are pretty decent. So the fact that she doesn't play it, I think that was the right move to get rid of Omer. So it's fine that she didn't, but I do think that she probably should have, being her.
I'm so confused because it literally didn't it say on the advantage you can only use it until the final 6 doesn't that make more? I don't know. I guess
and it's not an idol. It's not a traditional idol. It was the amulet that evolved into an idol. So I'm pretty sure they wouldn't have put the amulet back in the game.
I don't like. I would almost lay down my life to say to 100% agree with you because there's no way. I don't know. So I'm just very frustrated. Sorry, I got very dramatic. I
do want to talk about well, just because we touched on Mike very briefly, and I do want to give my opinion about Mike's gameplay because, Coach, you've said a few times you see him as as a fellow coach. You see some coach tendencies there, and Mike out there, and he is a coach as well, right? So it actually kind of makes sense. I believe he does coaching outside of the game, but in any case, so. With him, I do think in Survivor, your strengths becomes your weaknesses and your weaknesses becomes your strengths a lot of the times in the game. Look at someone like Jonathan, physically a big guy. In life, that's great because you could probably, do a lot with that or, be a good looking, tall person. People will probably look up to you. But in Survivor, that becomes a threat, right? Mm-hmm. Now, it's similar to something like Mike's game. He's a great social person. I think that if we had to meet Mike in real life, he would probably become best friends with all three of us just because he can connect with people on so many different levels very deeply, very quickly. The problem with a game such as Survivor is that you bond even quicker than in real life. You're sleeping next to this person. You're depending on them for heat at night so you don't die of hypothermia or whatever is happening out there. The bonds become that much deeper and he's great at building social connections. So when somebody does that, it stings that much harder when someone you really respected and loved in the game backstabs you. And I think that's what he's going to be struggling with. The level of social connections that he's made is going to come back to bite him if he makes it to the final.
Absolutely.
And I just don't think he's got the Chris Daughtry ability to swing that jury around to say, hey, I'm the bad person. Yeah, I'm the bad person. You're a better person because you couldn't take me out and I had to take. I don't think he's got the ability to do that. So I do think he's sadly not going to win this.
I agree with you. I think that the thing, we even talked about that with Omar a lot. He was everyone's number one kind of in a different way, or a lot of people have said that even in the exit jury. So whenever he arrived to Ponderosa, he mentioned that he wasn't welcome with open arms, that it was a lot more tense, and that's because they had a much more deep connection with him, so I think that that's going to be, I don't know if people are going to look at Mike the same way by the end, just because I'm going to vote for you because you did play the best social game for me and that really connected with me and how that got you to the end. I don't know though. I think that the whole with Mike's strategy is just that all we see is that surface level social, so it makes me wonder what, because he hasn't won any challenges, right? And the only thing that he has going for him as well is the idol that he found, right? Am I missing any other really big strategic moves?
No, and the thing is, in his mind, he thinks he's been running the show, but there's certain points in the game where High manipulated him to vote in a certain way, or Omar manipulated him to vote in a certain way, and they used his emotions against him. He made a lot of emotional decisions, which I think is not going to reflect well on him at the end game, because certain people will say, well, we were never coming for you. I don't think Chanel was, and also that's one thing I didn't really appreciate about him, just while we're talking about it. And don't take this as I don't like Mike at all, because I do actually like Mike a lot, but doesn't mean we can't be critical about certain things, right? When him and Chanel had that argument, just going into the merge where she voted for him, and he took it so badly when he voted for her. It's just hypocritical. He was, again, trying to take the moral high ground. And we know that in Survivor, the moral high ground makes you look really bad in a game where ultimately it is you against everybody else at the end. So you're going to have to make decisions that's going to test that morality that you have, or, how you want to play this game. And I think he's going to get found out. Chanel's not voting for him. Roxroy's going to feel like he betrayed him and didn't have his back, didn't warn him. It's hard. High is not going to vote for him. I don't think Omar respects him because Omar manipulated him for a lot of the merge. I just don't see where he gets any votes in the end.
I could see Rock, the dad vibes. They would stick together. You think?
He's going to feel betrayed. Rox to me comes across as a guy of principle. Roxroy is that guy, how it is, you tell me how it is, straight to my face, I will take your word for it, and let's move on. He's Roxroy, by the way, one of my favorite characters to play Survivor probably in the last 10 seasons, because you know why? This guy is from another era. He's stuck in a time machine, came from the first 10 seasons, landed on the beach in season 40, and tried to apply principles that worked in the first maybe even 5 seasons of Survivor. And I really loved seeing it's kind of nostalgic seeing this guy that's like, oh, I'm a provider, we're going to do straightforward votes. Like, I just enjoyed it. Again, you need
still made it
variety.
relatively far. So, like, he made the merge, and he wasn't merge boot or anything. So, like, I'd say, the old school game actually worked for him decently well. But what I was going to say is, my fear for Mike right now is either one, he's going to sit at the end, and people are going to almost give him the Sarah Lucina treatment from Game Changers, where there's like, oh yeah, you claim to be our friend and this, that, and the other, and like really tear into him. Which I do think that he was genuinely building those bonds with me. I don't think that he was being fake about it. No. Just like but I fear that they're going to tear into him as if he took advantage of something they told him, because I just don't feel that's how he is. It doesn't seem like that's how he is. My other fear is that people are just going to go up there, that he's going to go up there and play the coach role of saying, "Oh yeah, I was loyal to everyone," and blah blah blah. And it's like, no, Mike, don't do that. Because
raise your hand if you've been personally victimized by Mike. Like, it's like a Mean Girls moment.
I feel like that's I fear that's what he's going to do. And if that's the case, then yes, he's definitely not getting any votes, because then he's going to look like a liar as well as a backstabber. And it's like, all right, if he goes up there and owns up to it, I feel like he could get votes. Right. I think the only situation that he wins is against Jonathan and Romeo. But
I agree.
I think that
I will. I mean, I will counter. Like, I think that almost everyone has a pretty good shot at winning on Wednesday. Can't believe y'all 2 days. Are we so excited? But like, if we're I think that Mike is so good at talking to people and really listening and actively empathizing and working with them. I would love to see how he would operate in a final tribal, because I do think that when his back's up against the wall and he's facing so many different hardships at one time, which you've already seen, like weather, different social conflicts, those sorts of things, he learns how to take that kind of stuff in and not project it, but find ways to respond back thoughtfully and eloquently. So I do wonder how that would pose whenever we get to a final tribal, because I feel that, a final tribal, it's 50% of the whole battle a lot of the time, because a lot of jury members come in completely undecided. So how you choose to compose yourself and the answers you choose to give them really help to determine that final impression.
Do we feel like someone's trying to bait him? Before you get to your question, Chris, do you feel like people are going to try to bait Mike into something? Like a juror might go up there and try to bait him into trying to bring up the loyalty thing, or... Do you feel like this is the type of jury where someone might try to bait him into that? Okay.
I think high will. I'm putting it on high. Like 100% high is going to be like, oh, you were going to take a bullet for both me and for Lydia, and this is how it turned out. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. I kind of almost feel like Mike is getting the Rick Devens edit, the classic fourth place edit for the season. I don't actually think he's going to make it to the finale. If I had to predict right now how I see this play out, I think next episode, whoever between Lindsay and Jonathan doesn't win the immunity is gone. It's too big of a threat to have both those two threats go into a final four scenario. So one of them will be gone next. Then after that, my prediction is Jonathan wins the next one. Lindsay's gone. Then Jonathan and Mike, I think, somehow ends up going to fire. And Marianne pulls off like a crazy win, or Romeo, someone that we didn't see, and then one of those two is out, and potentially it could be like a Mike, not making the finale. But it's interesting, because even if he does make it, we've seen enough of his game to know that if he goes up against Marianne, he probably won't get the votes. Right. I feel like Marianne making this move, and I know we will talk about that move in a bit, really solidified that she is peaking at the right time of the game in front of the jury against someone that has been involved in every single person's blind side on the jury. And I think that automatically will give her more respect, because like you quite rightfully said, Drew, what has Mike done strategically in the game up until this point? And we haven't seen it. Like, I feel like his moves have always been someone else's moves. He's been used as like a henchman, basically, for other people's plans in the game.
Well, the other added thing that Christian added this as well. Hey, Christian, I want to give credit to him because We're also missing one other really important component, which which I completely forgot. In 41, they hid a final advantage somewhere on this new beach that they're all going to, and that one advantage is going to be able to help someone else win the challenge. I think can they use that up in the final 4, or is it just for the final 5? Because that's going to be like a big component to help determine who's safe and who isn't.
I actually don't know. Yeah, I actually don't.
Okay, great. So we don't know. Okay, I think it might be only final 5 because it could be final 4. I don't know.
I feel like it's final. I think it's final 5 from memory. It was at final 5 going into final 4. You had an advantage that basically what it was in the previous one, and it's been a while. But I think you skipped a certain section of the challenge and you kind of move forward ahead. You didn't have to qualify. Sorry,
I think
for the first round.
Yeah, like things weren't tied all together or something, right? Wasn't
so
that,
it's not like
that's
it's
what
not
made Erica win?
Yeah, it did. I guess it did to a certain degree. It did because if it's not sections where you just skip a section, then it's a little bit more unfair. By the way, how do you guys feel about? Like, I know this is probably overplayed, but how do you feel about we're moving to a new beach? Why? We're getting another advantage in the game this late in the game. Like, I just feel like, come on, Jeff. Like, at some point. And I'm fearful of 43 because I'm hearing that it's the same format moving forward.
Oh,
it's
is
26
it?
days again.
Oh,
Really?
the 26 days, I like. That's fine. I'm over that. I'm more curious. I guess on that first part, I feel like they've successfully jumped over every hurdle that was in their way after 41.
Mm-hmm.
I think that everything that 41 did wrong, even up to the do or die twist, 42 remedied or did the exact same do or die. They remedied or did the exact same. I don't think that there's anything that can happen now that would leave this season with a bad taste in most people's mouths. I think that this season is going to be highly regarded as one of the best, especially in new age seasons. There's always going to be people that are like, Marianne won, the show's too woke now, or whatever the case is. So I feel like they've successfully jumped over every hurdle. So like whatever this advantage, or we know what the advantage is, but no matter how the advantage plays out, no matter how Final Four fire making plays out, no matter if they decide to change something up at Final Tribal, I don't think they will. I think this season is pretty much set in stone as one of the best. Going to Chris's fear, though, for 43, my whole thing is they can't use most of the twists that they have done in the last 2 seasons because it'd be telegraphed to the players. You can't do, I know I call it the time turner, I know it's not called the time turner, but the time turner, can't do that anymore. You can't do the codes for the idols at the beginning of the game. Now, a better option would be what they did with Drea's advantage at the merge, the Beware advantage with the paint. I think they did something
I love that, by the way.
Yeah, I did
One
too.
Of the great creative
They
moments.
have to do that again. They have to do that. That was
if they
so
made their
good.
Beware advantages like that and just made all the Beware advantages like that, that'd be perfect. But they can't do any more of the phrases because people would know what's going on. They can't do the fake merge because everyone would know what's going on. So if that is the case, if 43 and potentially 44 are going to be that way, that does scare me because you're not going to get lightning in a bottle every time like you did with 42. You know,
the cost saved the season.
Could be more like 41 than it is like 42.
Right. Yeah. I think that there were a few things that I feel like a lot with 41 and 42 producers had a whole year in quarantine and they were like, we're just going to throw a bunch of shit on the wall and see what sticks, which like, great. Honestly, like I would rather see a lot more than not enough. If that makes sense. For me, the 26 days, I live for it. And the main reason why is that I've listened to so many interviews just kind of picking other people's brains on this from other castaways. And they said that while the edit makes it look like, everything's very quick and high paced, there's a lot of days and like a lot of dry and like dead air time where they're just sitting at the wall staring at, sitting and staring at each other. With 26, it's a lot more elevated gameplay and there's not as much time to think, which really plays into the timing aspect. And I think really did 42 a much better service because everyone was there's not enough time for people to be able to sit back and process and like strategize and try to make different changes. It's all based on impulse. So for me, I hope that 26-day format stays, and then the amulet advantage stays, and that's all I care about.
I do like the amulet. I liked the amulet this year. I actually would not mind if they brought back Shot in the Dark. Just until they see it succeed, I would like to see Shot in the Dark back.
I just need them to change Shot in the Dark. Like, I just need them, like we talked about this before, like how every time someone rolls it, then the odds get better and better, So like a 1 in 5, 1 in 4, 1 in 3 until it actually works. That's what I need. And then it'll be great.
But can you game it then with your alliance to say, okay, let's just all play Shot in the Dark the same night to ensure that it's out of the game earlier rather than later? Like, I feel like you can game it.
Well, true, but I mean, like then it restarts like back in the 1 in 6, and like that's the way that I thought. But
yeah, it's an interesting concept. I like Shot in the Dark as well. I think that it's one of the things that haven't completely changed the fundamentals of the show. Yeah. I'm not a fan of the 26 days though. Like me and you, Em, we'll have to have a debate at another time about this.
Yeah, we will, and then I'll win.
It's a podcast on its own. We'll talk about this. But you haven't convinced me yet. Salty old school fan here.
So somehow we're not getting to this until 35 minutes in, but we have Lindsay win the immunity challenge. I forgot where I was. We have Lindsay win the immunity challenge. Thank goodness. And then all hell breaks loose, and it was in this moment that Chris, before we went live, was like, "I'm the only foreigner. We say it's coming home." Blah blah blah.
Yeah. As a member, it's coming back to the international community, right?
As a member of the Sepia Stan Club, what I mean, it's coming home. Everyone kind of understands at that point, right? Okay, so Marianne, who for the longest part of this season has been very polarizing, not only with the people on the island, but fans. A lot of people love Marianne, but a lot of people find her annoying. I mean, I understand the people that find her annoying. I don't find her annoying. I feel like I could suck it up and deal. But we get the what's the word? I want to call it the genesis, because she's been doing this for a while.
She's the caterpillar into a butterfly.
It's funny because she called Omar that when it's actually her.
I know. Isn't that poetic?
We finally get her moment where it's like, yep, this is it. If someone's gonna win now, it has to be this person, because who wants to take the reins on this? Chris?
Oh, yeah, I'll talk about it.
Okay.
Are we talking like, so she orchestrated what I thought was really, really brilliant. Initially, we were seeing, Mike and Jonathan have this conversation, and we saw even at the beginning, Mike was like, okay, well, we have to let go of Romeo, right? Or we have to let go of Omar, right? And then those feelings quickly changed, which I also feel like rightfully so, because Lindsay's a really smart strategic game player. Obviously, if she has the power to save her and another person who's more likely to vote with her, they thought that's what was going to happen. So Mike and Jonathan gave a lot of pushback, and they wanted to instead put their votes on Romeo to help to improve their odds, right? Marianne knew, or had, she thought that it was now time to take a risk. And at that point, she thought that it was the best time for her to use her extra vote. So at that point, they decided to do the 3 and the 2. And we talked a little bit about this, but do we think that was the absolute best move? Do we think that this was something that Marianne was completely in charge of, or that they all collectively decided as a group think sort of mentality? What are our thoughts?
Now, here's the thing. Let's talk about Marianne as a whole, right? She came into this season like a firecracker for me. Her personality, I was all for it. Episode 1, episode 2, episode 3, I was like, maybe this is getting a little bit too much. Like, if I was out there, how would I feel playing with her? I probably would get annoyed with that high energy when I'm hangry. Like I said, that is a problem, a legitimate problem for someone like me that's still growing, right? But,
you're a growing boy.
I'm a growing boy. I need my food. But Marianne as a whole, right? I actually do love Marianne, and she really found her place in this game. Her back and forth with Jeff this whole season has been fun to watch. Jeff clearly loves interacting with her at Tribal Council as well. And I think that with her, like, it's funny, she was like the winner that was hiding in plain sight for me this whole season, because we had the more flashy or the bigger edit around Omar that kept people focused on, okay, I think someone's going to win from Taku. It's probably Omar. Some people thought maybe Lindsay had a chance. Jonathan had a good start and then he lost steam, obviously, towards the merge. But at the end of the day with Marianne, I think what happened is that she came to the merge, she realized she wasn't in a position of power. So for her at that point, the only thing she could do, but do you need 18 eggs for breakfast? No, I don't need 18 eggs for breakfast. That is an insane amount of food. But anyways, so what I was going to say, she realized she was not in a position of power. And instead of trying to force it, or to play against these people that were in a better position than her, she latched onto them, like Omar and the likes, to be able to go deeper into the game. Now, I do think, and this is going to be something where people will probably talk about this in the offseason, I think she got lucky that Mike split away from Omar at this point in the game. There's things that happen behind the scenes. We won't talk about, the Nullified too much and all of that. I think she got lucky, but you also have to get into a position late in the game to get lucky, and that is the game of Survivor. Things can change at a drop of a dime, basically. If you look at people playing an idol, they're the biggest target in the game. They play an idol, suddenly next vote, people are not focusing on them, they're focusing on another person. What's the difference really there? I think that she had to do the work to get to the position she was with the advantages that she has to pull this move off. And it was the right move at the right time. Right. Some players may have even been scared in this, and would have said, no, I've been with Omar my whole time out here. I'm going to let him know the move is coming for him. I'm going to stay loyal. She realized Omar's going to win this game. I think the move was the right move at the right time. At the end of the game, when the jury is looking for someone they can hand the win over Mike, over Jonathan, over Lindsay, maybe not so much Lindsay. I think Lindsay had a legitimate chance, but she's too close to Omar, and I don't think she can differentiate her game too much from him. So I love it. I think Marianne, if she does end up winning this game, is going to be a great winner. One of the things I do want to talk about, Drew, and definitely put your own thoughts on Marianne as well, but is this the new meta now for Survivor? Will we see more and more smaller women of stature that play a little bit more of a passive game early on, and then later on start making moves? Will this be the new meta of how to win Survivor moving forward?
Hell yeah!
And do you think that the traditional players, such as your more explosive players, will not have as much of a chance moving forward? Or do you think it does come, it's like a wheel, everybody gets their time in the sun?
I think it's a wheel only because, the first 20 seasons, it was pretty much even as far as men and women winners. Even like in the first half of the 20s, I think it was all but one female winner, if I'm not mistaken. No, that's not true, because Fabio and Boston Rob won. And it was only really the last 6 seasons before, or the last 7 seasons before 41, where it became a male-dominated thing then. But even with those 7 winners, none of them really fit the same archetype. So, like, we have Ben, who, he wasn't winning because he was a dominant male that was winning all these immunities. He won because he found idols. We have Wendell, who was the social/strategic force along with Dom in his season. And so I would say that's different from Ben. We have Nick Wilson. We have Chris Underwood. We have Tommy, who, great social player. We have Tony, who perfected all pretty much the
trifecta. The trifecta,
and winning the most immunities in the season. So I don't think it'll be a gender thing. I do think that the people that kind of, I won't say chill, because no one's chilling out there. No one's just relaxing. But I do think the players that like bide their time to say, hey, you know what? I understand that I'm on the bottom right now, but I'm not finished playing just yet. Just like some.
But isn't it ironic how they've reduced the days in the game, so it's this faster, quicker game, and it's now actually benefiting the slower players in the game, the ones that don't make moves as quickly.
That might be I think that might be on the account of everyone is, I think we're still in this big moves era where people feel like they have to be making these moves. And now with 26 days, everyone wants to make these big moves all the time because you're going to run out of time you're going to run out of time if you don't. So if you're a player that's like, the the more passive players. Yeah, okay, cool. That Romeo confessional is going to keep ringing in my head because it's like, yeah, let these people have at it. They're not worried about me, and that's their fault if I'm sitting at the end next to two people that they just actually don't like.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm, I don't think that'll be the case with Romeo this time because I think there's only one person that they're really not going to like. But I do think there's a situation where a Romeo could win in this season, mainly because they were, Romeo was able to start off hot, read the room and see that these people are really going after each other. And yes, he may have chilled more than we would like, but in a situation that he does, win, it's like, okay, well, guess that was right. But talking about Marianne, Marianne was very in your face, like you said. She was very in your face from the very beginning. She's talking about her white crush and
I love him.
Her and Jeff have a better bond than Jonathan and Jeff. Hot take. And everyone's giving these confessionals towards right before the merge happens, where it's like, oh yeah, Marianne will be next if we ever lose. Guess what? Y'all never lose, so you never have to get rid of Marianne. It gets to the merge. It's established that Marianne is on the bottom of this big power alliance. You know what happens? The big power alliance immediately turns on each other because they're running out of time. And all of a sudden, Marianne is able to sit back, read the room for a few days, realize, oh man, Drea just said this about Omer on his way out. I know that these people are kind of on the fence about Omer right now. Omer's sitting high because it's like, yep, I've gotten rid of everyone that could potentially beat me. And in that moment where Omer says, was that you? I think that was him basically handing the keys to her saying, hey, this is all on you now. Like, finish this off. And I love, that was my favorite part of the episode is him saying,
you did it, I did it.
Yeah. Make sure the jury knows this is Marianne and she just took me out. I'm sorry that was a long rant, but
no.
a long rant.
And that look she gave the jury after the acknowledgement that Omar gave her was just endearing. Like, it's like I've vicariously lived through her as another super fan who got the opportunity to play the show, and that when the moment came to make the move, she did it. And that is amazing. And I think. I won't be too hard on her for, I think it was Token Cheens that she never finished.
Yeah, she never finished Token Cheens.
Yeah, she saw 6 episodes, right?
It knocked her down. She started on a handicap with me because of that, because Token Cheens is one of my favorite seasons. But, I won't knock her too much for that. I think it's so awesome to see a super fan actually go there because we've seen both sides of it. We saw Zach go out early, didn't live it to his dream. And then we see her go through the game and potentially go on to win this season. So I know it's a hot take. I actually don't mind any of the players that are left in the game. Like, I don't mind anyone winning. I don't have enough ill feelings towards anyone. Obviously, there's people that I would love to win more than others. It just happens naturally. But I think that anybody winning, like you said, even if Romeo were to win this season, we could still go back and say, what did Romeo do? Maybe the move is to sit next to the pot, have your extra share of rice every now and again. Maybe that is the move to win the game. Who knows?
Yeah.
By the way, the guy hasn't been on a reward, so they were shading him unnecessarily. I mean, if you haven't been on a reward, you're going to try and eat whenever you can.
That poor guy, he's like wasting away to nothing. The last time, whenever they brought, right before that reward, they were like, oh yeah, I know that you haven't gotten a reward soon. And they focused on his face. That man is like skin and bones. I said, oh, give that man the whole cake. Like, felt so bad. And I think, honestly, like just to add on to like what both of you guys are saying, a lot of people, we always hear the phrase of like, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon, but in Survivor, I feel like it's a combination of both. It's a marathon, but you also need to know when you need to sprint, when you need to make those really big moves. And I think that like we have a few people and a few different competitors in here that have been able to create that balance. I think they've painted a really great picture for Marianne of knowing when to stay back and just enjoy the ride and carry on with the marathon, right? And when to make the big moves like we saw last week. We have Lindsay who has been able to carry on, and she's also made a lot of really big moves challenge-wise, which I think really helps to pose a really good omen for her. Hopefully that she can make it a little bit longer. And so there's a lot of different people, but it's learning, it's that creating that mastery of balance, if that makes sense.
No, I get it.
Mhm.
I'm going to start wrapping things up though because we're almost at an hour. So I know a lot of people like speaking hyperbole, and we just sat here last week and said that Drea's exit is one of the greatest of all time, and I think with the remove a week or two, I would still say that it's still top 5 for me. Exits of all time. Yes, we have seen a 3-2-1 before, but is this one of the better moves that we've seen all time? A week separated from it. Do we think that this is going to, or do you think that because it's not the OG 3-2-1, it was 3-2-1, right? I'm not making this up.
So I think it's 3-2-2.
3-2-2. Sorry. Yeah, because there's, yeah, duh. Is this an all-time move, or is this an all-season move?
For me, it depends on who wins. If Marianne's able to sink the win, this would like I told Hopi and Travis who watched with me last week. Hey guys, love you. The second that she did that, the first words out of my mouth were like she just won the season. Like that was her big moment, right? So if she can find a way to make it to the final 3, that was her defining moment. But if it's just it just kind of depends on how on how that's perceived by the jury, I guess, if that makes sense.
I mean, I understand that juries can be annoyed with certain things, but like,
right,
pulling that off, you don't really piss off anyone because 4 of the people were in on the plan anyway, with her, Romeo, Jonathan, and Mike.
right.
Omer gave her respect on the way out.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Lindsay's going to be overly pissed that it happened, because she's not dumb enough to blow up her game like someone else did last season.
And she's equally at fault because she didn't give him the advantage. So she's equally at fault for that.
And who am I missing? Oh, is that it? Oh, and no, yeah, because Romeo's part of the plan. So I don't see anyone holding. I think that everyone's going to give her that. I feel like no one's going to ask her, what was your big move? Because they all saw it. No, it'd be kind of silly if someone asked her that question.
And she knew when to sprint. She knew when to sprint, and that's when she did it.
And so now all she has to do for Final Tribal is focus on social and, the physical portion, but whatever. Focus on your social game and say, hey, I was playing from the bottom and I still sat here to go along with this big move I had. I wipe my hands with these other 2 because I just won. Like that's what it has to be.
Can I ask one more question? I know that we're about to be closing, but I mean, just like while we're shaping out like different like quote unquote resumes, right? Like you mentioned that Marianne hasn't won a challenge yet, right? Do you think that will serve as a detriment to her if she makes it to the final jury?
No.
I think there's been many winners in the past that have never
won.
I don't think Tony
I just wonder.
I don't think Tony
it just makes me wonder, like it makes me wonder, like in this new era, like what the value is. You know what I mean of winning challenges.
Yeah, Tommy Sheehan never won. Tommy Sheehan never won a challenge either, and it's funny because if Tommy Sheehan, who's supposed to be, looks like an athletic guy out there, didn't win a challenge, and people are like, hey, you were casted to be the challenge person and you didn't win a challenge, and he still gets the win at the end. I think Marianne, who when you look at her, you're like, she doesn't look like she's going to win every single challenge, and there hasn't been that many puzzles or memory type challenges for her to sort of dominate, and I don't think that the jury is going to hold that against her. And I think even having 2 physical presences in the season, such as Jonathan and Lindsay, who are both absolute beasts, you just don't expect that. I mean, I think she's going to be okay. The move alone is going to definitely get it to her. I think, Coach, to go to what you said, is that very rarely in Survivor can you make a move and claim the move as your own, because there's always someone else that is involved. We're all the heroes of our own story. It's all, like Emma said earlier, it's your truth, what you see in the moment and how you see the moves playing out. You always think you're the one leading that vote. But in her case, she had to place that second vote to be able to take him out with the split in the vote. So I think that the jury will fully give that to her. They'll fully, if she uses this right, the real magic isn't in the fact that she used the extra vote. The real magic is in the fact that she convinced Romeo to vote with her when Romeo knew he was going to cop 2 votes, because he could have easily gone home if there was an extra vote going that way. So if she can really spin the narrative, like, listen, I even convinced this guy whose butt was on the line, he could have just changed his vote to Jonathan and he's safe easily. I convinced him to vote with me in that vote. The power lies in that to me, and how she convinced Romeo to come with her to make that vote. So, and I think Marianne, there's still time left. She could still take out Jonathan. She could still take out Lindsay. I think she is going to take out the edit makes us believe, or the next on Survivor makes us believe it's going to be Jonathan. My predictions is that Jonathan wins the next immunity and Lindsay's going to go. I think that's what I think. I could be wrong. I don't know anything, but it's kind of how I see this shaping up, because Jonathan's been played out as this big physical threat, and I just haven't seen it yet. So I feel like he must have another immunity or two in him just based on the edit, the plot armor the edit has given him. Because otherwise I'm like, this guy is not all that. He's not even in the top 10 of all challenge beasts, you know? And this comes from someone I'm not, like you guys know, I'm probably more pro Jonathan than most, but you've got to be realistic. Definitely more than you guys, but you've got to be realistic.
Right.
Yeah. So, Chris, thank you so much for coming back. I know it's been almost a year since we did this. Actually, yeah, because last time it's been about a year because Survivor Australia or Survivor South Africa. Where can we find you? Yeah, where can we find you, Chris?
Yeah, definitely. I just wanted to say it's been so much fun jumping on a podcast with you. First time in nearly a year. You can always count on me if you want to talk about any hot topics. You know, I'm a very opinionated person. I'm not afraid to have the online community come at me for not agreeing with them. Go Ben Driebergen, still one of the better winners of all time.
Goodbye.
So you can always count on me to jump on and do one of these. You can find me on the Nullified Take channel here on YouTube. I've got it in my name here as well, Chris the Nullified Take. We talk about Survivor 42 as well. So we've been recapping this whole season. I do short form videos, top fives every now and again. And also we're doing content on the Challenge All Stars 3 right now. And we also do the Amazing Race on the channel. So check it out. There's plenty more content to come in the near future.
All right, Chris, thank you so much. Me and Emma will be back tomorrow to do a pre-finale panel with some of our guests from the season. That should be going up around 8:30, 9 o'clock tomorrow night. So please tune in back with us tomorrow. We can all agree that Marianne's winning, right? Right now?
Yeah.
I'm hopeful.
Okay.
I think she's winning. 73% of my community has voted that she's winning this thing. So I think it's a foregone conclusion. So, it's done.
As I said at the beginning of the episode, it is coming home. But thank you all for tuning in, and we will see you on the